Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Mormon Atheist. So, today's topic is we're going to be talking about the journey of deconstruction and how I got to where I'm at and how I deal with it and all that kind of stuff, right? And then we're going to be talking about a lot of other things as well. So, all right, so like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's just get right into this. So one thing that I would like to start out with saying is I know that a lot of the topics in my videos lately have been kind of conspiratorial, right? And I will completely admit that, right? It's this stuff is going in a very crazy direction, and literally the only thing I'm doing is following names and dates, and that's it. I'm not, I have no pre-planned agenda. I have no, I'm going to get you, or I got you, or I got none of that. I'm strictly just following the dates and the names and seeing where they take me as far as the LDS religion is concerned, right? And so my main focus is from 1700 to the time that Joseph Smith died, 1844. That's my main focus, right? And so I want to know what's going on with this guy. I want to know who he is, what makes him tick. I have found a whole bunch of stuff that is firsthand information that when people are asking about Joseph Smith, nobody seems to know the details about him. Like what, did he have a smile to the left or to the right? Was it straight across? What color were his eyes? These are, and this is stuff that I'll be coming out with in future episodes, but there's articles, there's newspaper articles of people that visited the Salt Lake community when they first arrived in Utah, journalists and things of that sort. And Orson Pratt and Parley P. Pratt, Orson Pratt, all of these guys, Miss Snow, nobody can describe Joseph Smith or say what he looks like. In the article, the exact words is, nobody knows the particulars of the founder and prophet of their own church. That's literally what the guy says in his article. So I'll be coming out with that here in a little while. You can find these people, and you can look them up, and you can trace them, you can track them down, and you can find where they're at and who they're talking to. And the internet is an amazing tool. You can literally look up everything. Was there a guy that had an army that rivaled the size of the American army at the time? Yeah, sure there was, but it wasn't Joseph Smith though. So we take the stories that the church tells us, and is what I'm doing is I'm verifying those stories. I'm trying to validate those stories. I want to know who this guy is. Okay. And so far, I cannot find any outside source information on Joseph Smith Jr., Joseph Smith Sr., Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, or Martin Harris. I cannot find a single outside source. I can't find anybody mentioning these guys. I can literally find nothing other than the church's own story. And I can't find anything on either four of these guys. And so that raises my red flags a little bit as to, is Joseph Smith even a real person? So I did, my last video that I did is exactly that topic. Is Joseph Smith a real person? because I literally can't find any information. I've been searching and searching and searching, and believe me when I tell you I've been searching, I can literally not find nothing, zero, zippo. I can't find anything on these guys as far as an outside source is concerned. Nobody's talking about them. Nobody's mentioning their names. Nobody's mentioning the Mormons. And the way that I'm going about doing this is I'm there's other things going on in the 1820s, right? America is a bustling country at the time of its sprout, right? So we're literally dealing with colonial America here, right? So you have to go back to the colonists when they got here to know what the agenda was when these people got to the United States, right? Like what was the plan? What was the agenda? What was the focus, right? Well, the focus was a new Jerusalem. That was the idea, right? Is America was the promised land, and they're going to build a new Jerusalem in the promised land. Well, how did that, what happened to that idea? Like, where did it go? Like, what, did it just die out? Did it, what happened to the new Jerusalem idea? Well, that's where we come in. That's where the Mason part of it comes in. Okay. Freemasonry, America more or less was founded on the 33rd Scottish Rites of the Freemasonry, right? Kilwinning Abbey is the name of the lodge. I think it was 1745 or something like that is when that lodge was established. That's when it was either established or when it ended. I don't remember exactly offhand, but anyways, you can look it up. Kilwinning Abbey is the name of it. And that was also the last place, that was the last known location of the Holy Grail, was also Kilwinning Abbey in Scotland. So there's a lot of, so this stuff goes deep. I mean, you got the Masons that basically founded America, right? I mean, everybody knows the Da Vinci Code and all that kind of stuff, and everybody knows all that stuff. Well, behind every conspiracy theory, there is a kernel of truth behind that. Whether you like it or not, it's, I'm not into the Da Vinci Code, so I don't get into that kind of stuff. I don't believe in that kind of stuff. Yeah, sure, there might be some truth behind all of that, but I'm not interested in that stuff, right? So, but what I am interested in is Freemasonry as far as the church goes, as far as the LDS church goes. That's what I am interested in. And along with that comes a whole bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of things. I mean, this is not just a cut and dry cookie cutter approach to this, right? Masonry has been going on since the Knights Templar, right? The Freemasons are the Knights Templar. And where does the Knights Templar come from, right? So you have all of this stuff, it all goes together. And when you try to explain this to an LDS person, the blinders go on. They're just completely not interested. They don't even care. They're just not interested, right? That's not the Mormonism that they know. That's not the Mormonism they practice. That's not the Mormonism this. That's not the Mormonism that. Okay, well, you have to understand Mormons and non-Mormons. This stuff all goes hand in hand. Freemasonry has been around for thousands of years, right? Maybe not under the name of Freemasonry, but it's been around, okay? Who was the first Freemason? Solomon was the first Freemason. That's right, Solomon, King Solomon. Now, whether you believe in King Solomon or not, that is not the point. That's not even the issue here, okay? We can get into debates on if there really even was a King Solomon, all that. I'm not interested in that debate at this juncture when it pertains to this Mormonism. Okay, because as far as Christianity and Mormonism is concerned, King Solomon did exist, and so did King David. So, because David is Solomon's son, right? So, in order to understand Mormonism, you really have to read the Testament of Solomon. I can't even express that enough. Because in Freemasonry, Hiram Abif is a big player in Freemasonry. Well, who is Hiram Abif? So his name is either pronounced Abif or R Beef, right? Hiram R Beef or Hiram Abif is the two ways. Either way, it's the same guy. So you have to know who Hiram Abif is, right? Hiram Abif is Solomon's servant, and King Solomon. So as the story goes, is the servant of Solomon comes to Solomon and says, "Hey, there's this demon that keeps sucking on my thumb, and he's sucking the spirituality out of me." And Solomon says, "Hey, well, I got this ring," and he throws the ring at Hiram, and he says, "You can bind these demons with this ring. That is the seal of Solomon, that ring. That ring is the pentagram. That is the ring that binds the demons. You throw the ring at the demon in its chest, and it encompasses the demon inside the ring," right? So think of like a really tight belt, right? That's what the ring is. So that's how you bind them. And so there's 72 good demons, there's 72 bad demons, there's 72 good angels, there's 72 bad angels. All of these angels have legions. Some of them have legions of 300. Some of them have 300 legions of 300. Some of them have 10 legions and 20 legions. Some of them have 10 legions and 300 legions. So it's deep. And I'm not even going to try to explain it to you. I'm not even going to attempt that, because this stuff is so deep that it is. I mean, you could have there's literally podcasts just on Solomonic Magic. There's podcasts just on Freemasonry. Okay. But here is what we're doing, is we're connecting the dots. We're taking Freemasonry and the LDS Church, and we're combining them, because everybody knows all of the rumors and all of the scuttlebutt and all of the gossip about how the LDS Church are Freemasons. Okay. Well, there is some truth to that. They may not be full-on Freemasons, but Freemasonry plays a huge role in the organization of the church. And this is where we get into William Morgan, right? So William Morgan was going to write a book so the story that we're told, okay, is he was going to write a book that divulges the secrets of Freemasonry. Well, that's kind of true. He was going to do that, but what he was going to do was he was specifically talking about the Church of Masonry. That's what he was talking about, the Church of Masonry. So this is where the LDS faction comes in. A lot of those guys that are accused, and the court hearings, and I have the actual court transcript of William Morgan's trial, right, of when these people confessed, and when they, the person that went to jail, all this stuff. A lot of the names that are on that page are names like Packard, Sibley, Hurlbut, Talbot, Pratt, And all of these names are very, very important names in Mormonism. And these names are no kidding in the transcripts. So it's nothing that I am coming up with, or, this is not my theory or anything. This is real stuff. This is legitimate court documents, government paperwork, right? It's the William Morgan case. Anybody, you can look it up online. It's there. Just look it up. Look up William Morgan, and you'll get a ton of stuff that's on him. You'll get an LDS version, you'll get a Masonic version, and then you'll get a real historical account version. So there's 3 different versions. And the Masons, believe it or not, are kind of the nicest in the versions. So you can decide on which version you prefer to tend to, but anyway, so William Morgan died in 1826, right? Well, 1826 is kind of the beginning of the LDS movement, right? That's kind of when Joseph Smith starts getting his revelations, and in 1827 he gets the book. He starts translating the book. So if you read the thing that really catches me with the William Morgan story is the similarities to the Joseph Smith story. The similarities are striking. I mean, they are striking. And the whole 116 pages, they're trying to find William Morgan's book. They got to get the book back. I mean, the story of the 116 pages is literally the same exact story of William Morgan's book, and how they were trying to get the book away from William Morgan. Like, I'm not joking you. This is legitimate stuff. This is not conspiracy tin hat stuff here. This is in the documents. It's in the documents. So there is no disagreement. You can't disagree with that. William Morgan was arrested for $2.69, I believe it was. Well, Joseph Smith was in a trial in 1826, and he was found not guilty, so they say. And his fine that he had to pay was $2.69. He was there's so many striking similarities to the story of William Morgan and the story of Joseph Smith. It's crazy. It's really crazy. The striking similarities. You can call them parallels, you can call them whatever you want to, but when you read that story of William Morgan, you'll definitely see the Joseph Smith story. And like I said before, I can't prove anything that Joseph Smith even existed. So I can't prove anything of. One thing I can prove is Aziel. Aziel is Joseph Smith Sr.'s father, so it's Joseph Smith Jr.'s grandfather. In world history, there is no Aziel. You can look up Aziel's father, which is Samuel Smith, right? And I did a video on this also. Samuel Smith is Aziel's father, right? Samuel Smith Jr. is Aziel's father. So you can look up Samuel Smith, right? And the dates. The dates are very important. Dates are very, very important. And names, okay? Well, you can look up Samuel Smith, right? And it will come up as Captain Samuel Smith. Well, Captain Samuel Smith, what? Well, his wife's name is the same as Joseph Smith Jr.'s grandfather's wife, great-grandfather's wife, Priscilla Gould. That's her name, Priscilla Gould. She was also William Morgan, or I'm sorry, not William Morgan. She was also the wife of both of them, Captain Samuel Smith and Samuel Smith Jr. So how is that possible, right? It's not possible. There's and if you look at Captain Samuel Smith, his brother was John Smith, the famous John Smith, Pocahontas, John Smith. So, if you're gonna put Joseph Smith in the place of John Smith, why not just say John Smith? Because John Smith way more popular and cooler than Joseph Smith is, right? So that's how that kind of stuff plays out. So you really need to kind of free your mind of feeling like you're being picked on, LDS people, because the truth hurts. I mean, the truth does hurt. And when your leaders and when your bishops and when your prophets and all this stuff feed you this narrative, right? And you become to believe that narrative wholeheartedly, okay? And somebody like me comes along and says, hey, this is Solomonic magic. You're looking at me like, this dude is nuts. This dude is nuts. Well, I know that it's Solomonic magic. You can look at all of the Joseph Smith talismans that he had. There's tons of videos on all of this stuff. You can look up everything I'm saying in this video. You can look it up for yourself and find it all out there. The parchment paper that Joseph Smith had, all of those little seals and symbols and all that stuff comes from Solomonic magic. Now, I don't want to hear no Francis Barrett. I don't want to hear no Agrippa. I don't want to hear none of that stuff, because it's Solomonic magic. You got to deal with Freemasonry, okay? Agrippa and Francis Barrett did not write their books before Masonry, okay? So you have to take that into account, the timeline of when these books are written, right? And when these things take place. Francis Barrett wrote his book in 1801, and that book is a very well-known pledgery of the Agrippa. So there's not an occultist on this planet that knows anything about Francis Barrett that takes the book of Francis Barrett seriously. Same with Sibley. They're not serious books. First of all, Freemasonry was long before Francis Barrett and Sibley ever even were considered, or a twinkle in their parents' eye. Okay, this stuff goes back. I mean, we're talking King Solomon. Solomonic magic is what this is, right? And specifically money magic. It's Solomonic money magic is what this is. And you can look it up. There's, the thing with those symbols is the symbols never change, but everything else on that parchment is it's personalized. So my parchment would be different than your parchment, because certain things mean different things to me, right? So if we take the exact same parchment papers and we compare mine and yours, they're going to be different. The symbols will be the same, because those symbols are Solomonic symbols. Those never change. Those will never change. The thing that changes is everything else on the page. That's what changes. The holiness to the Lord, that wording, that terminology, that's Masonic, holiness to the Lord. So there's Masonry definitely involved here, but it's combined, right? Solomonic magic and Freemasonry. When LDS people think of this, I want you to think of this as one magic trick, because that's what it is. You're being literally tricked. It's money magic. Look up Solomonic money magic. The Book of Mormon is blue, keep in mind. Okay, and what significance does that matter? Well, blue is the lucky color of money. So if I'm trying to get money from you, I give you something blue. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as it's blue, I give it to you. And that is supposed to invoke the idea of you giving me money. That's what that means. I mean, you can look it up and read it for yourself. It's in the Lesser Keys of Solomon. You can Google it. It's on Google. The Lesser Keys of Solomon, money magic. There's tons of YouTube videos on it. It's money magic. And so you're literally being conned, right? So the current topic, hey Rick, how you doing, man? So the current topic is, I am the Mormon Atheist, and we are talking about Joseph Smith, the founder of the Mormon Church. When when he died with a coin on his persons, right? Well, that coin had some symbols and markings on it, right? This is the Mormon religion, the LDS faith here. I am an ex-LDS member, so I talk from experience here. So since 1844, nobody has known what these symbols mean. And he has another parchment. You can go into my community chats on my page here, and I have pictures of them. And so I've been spending quite a few months looking up what those symbols are and what they mean and stuff. And nobody knows what they mean, what they are. There's tons of videos in the LDS community. There's a guy that does videos on the necromancy of Joseph Smith. So he shows all of these symbols, but he never says it's Solomonic magic, never. And so I sort of took that as a challenge, and I was like, hey, I'm going to figure out what these are because nobody can figure it out, right? And so through just literally comparing symbols, I came across Solomonic magic. But in order to understand this stuff, though, you have to read the Testament of Solomon. The Testament of Solomon is where you get Hiram Abith. These are Masonic names. Hiram Abith is a very big person. Hiram Abith is King Solomon's assistant, right? And so, yeah, there's a whole. I recommend. There's a ton of stuff on King Solomon, but it's Solomon's Testament. That's what you're looking for, and that will tell you the story of basically every religion on the planet. Is Enoch, all of that stuff, everything. You'll get angels, the Kabbalah angels that all come from Solomon. It's also referred to as angel magic. But as far as the LDS faith is concerned, those parchments and those coins that Joseph had on him, those are Solomonic magic, without a doubt. And it's called money magic. And the church practices it still to this very day. And the significance of that is they're called the Pentacles of Jupiter. Okay, so if you look up what the Pentacles of Jupiter are, the Pentacles of Jupiter, they go in Jupiter goes in and out of retrograde, right? So this stuff is complicated, you guys. I'm not even going to pretend like I know everything about this because I don't. But it all goes hand in hand. That's my point here. You can't say astrology only, alchemy only, masonry only. All of this stuff is combined together. You're talking thousands of years here. They've had time to practice, okay? They know what they're doing, all right? And so you have to look at the LDS connections between the occults and religion. And this is where the factor comes into play here, okay? Because William Morgan was writing a book on the Church of Masonry, and he died for that. He was murdered. He was killed. So the Church of Masonry is the LDS Church. You go back to the Scottish rites, right? The 33rd degrees. That comes from Kilwinning Abbey in Scotland. Kilwinning Abbey was the last known place for the Holy Grail. So if you take that into consideration, okay, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, understand that. If you were to take that into consideration, they came to America, they created America, right? The Masons did, right? Then they created this church. Well, this church, where they created this church at, is in a spot of New York that it's Canandaigua, Leroy, and right above Canandaigua is Palmyra, New York. Well, Palmyra, New York is where Joseph Smith is from. And everybody knows that. And their family are Masons. So there's a definite connection here. Now, like I said before, I cannot prove that Joseph Smith even existed. But as far as William Morgan goes, there is some pretty heavy evidence on who these people are, because they all have, like I said before, they all have, they're very LDS names. Packard, Hurlbut, the list goes on. There's quite a few of these names that are in this trial that have something to do with the trial, that are on record in the trial of William Morgan. So once you stack up these coincidences like that, it kind of doesn't become coincidence anymore, right? That's just the way I think of it, right? So the idea of today is to just kind of talk about my previous videos, because I've been getting a lot of emails and just reactions of like I'm crazy. And I'm thinking to myself, well, wait a minute, how can I be crazy when I don't even believe in this stuff? And I'm not the one that practices it. You are. You're the one that practices it. So imagine what I think of you, right? Because I'm not the one that practices this stuff. I'm not the one that goes to a church where my Book of Mormon is the color of a money magic. I don't do that. You are the one that does that. And so what I'm doing here is I'm saying, hey, let's connect all of these dots and let's just verify it. Let's verify the fact that Joseph Smith ran for president in 1844. Did he? The church says he did. Well, let's verify it. Let's look it up. Let's find out. There really was a guy that ran for president in 1844 that got murdered. But it wasn't Joseph Smith, though. There really was a guy that had an army that was the size of the American forces in 1840 or 30 whatever, right? Well, there really was a guy that had an army that size, but it wasn't Joseph Smith, though. You see, I literally cannot validate any of the stories that the church tells any of us. You can go to the church's website. There's the Joseph Smith papers. There's LDS.org. There's literally tons. There's tons and tons of places where you can find these stories. Just read them. This is very much church history here. You can read the Joseph Smith papers. They're online. You can read them. You can actually read the Joseph Smith papers right directly out of his journal, actually. And I thought that was pretty cool. I can't understand his handwriting, but thank goodness that it's in, it's printed below, because I can't read a word of it. It's like calligraphy style writing. And I remember my third grade teacher tried to teach us calligraphy one time, and we were learning cursive at the same time, and it just didn't go over well, as you would imagine, right? So cursive has died out, calligraphy's died out. One day, regular handwriting is going to die out. So who knows? But so, anyways, back to my story here is the LDS connection and the occult. You will never see this connection unless you are an LDS member. You will never see it. Why? Because of the taboo aspects. The occults are so taboo to an LDS member, right? An LDS member will never look at the occults, never. You can talk occults all day long. I can show you evidence. I can literally put this in front of an LDS member's face, and they will still deny. They will still deny it. So now, once you take an occultist, and if an occultist is looking into the William Morgan dynamics, he's going to hit the religion part of it, full stop. That's it. He's not going to go any further. That is the secret. That's the secret. It's in plain sight. You got to remember, this is Masonry. What do Masons do? They're notorious for hiding stuff right in front of your face. Okay? Well, if this connection is no more in front of your face than this, I don't know what to say to you, because I have put some books in my community chat. Light on Masonry. It's written by Elder David Brainerd, right? So here's the weird thing about that book. If you look up Elder David Brainerd, okay, he died in 1795. Elder David Brainerd, the author of the book Light on Masonry, died in 1795. So how is it that this guy's writing a book in 1826? It makes no sense. How is this guy writing a book in 1826 when he died in 1795? And you can look up Elder David Brainerd, and he was a preacher. He was a pastor. He went around preaching stuff. Uh, he went all over the place, and he had a slave, and his slave's name was Ansel. And sometimes they would refer to him as William Morgan. What just happened here? None of these dates match up. None of them do. None of them match. So how do you get this guy writing a book in 1826 about a guy named William Morgan that went through all of these trials and tribulations that are literally the same exact story of Joseph Smith? I'm confused, right? Do you see where my confusion kicks in? They're hiding it in plain sight. It's right in front of your face. You will never look at this because you're an occultist or you're an LDS member. Cut and dry, case closed. You will never look at this until you can finally come to your own conclusions that say, hey, I don't have to believe in this stuff to look into it, because I don't believe in it, and I am fascinated by it. I'm fascinated by it. The deeper I get into this, the better it gets, the better the story gets, because there is literally no information that Joseph Smith even exists outside of the church history story. None at all. You can look it up. In fact, I actually will challenge you. I will challenge you right now. I will challenge the world, the YouTube world. If you can show me any sort of outside source information that Joseph Smith actually does exist, and what I mean by that is firsthand knowledge. Okay, I want firsthand knowledge. Somebody describing Joseph Smith, somebody telling you about his character, somebody confirming some stories that the church tells us about Joseph Smith, somebody that's writing, another pastor in the time, because I've been reading a lot of these pastors' notes and stuff like that. You can look all of this stuff up. You can actually get their sermons that they would preach, right? And they just talk mad shit on each other. All of them do it. They all do it. You don't want to go over to those guys because they believe this or that or whatever, and our church is the real church. And I mean, this is the way these guys are going about their business. But nobody ever says anything about the Mormons, Joseph Smith, Latter-day Saints, Brigham Young. None of these names are ever mentioned in any of this stuff. Like I said in the very beginning of this episode, I'm going to be coming out with future episodes where I literally have affidavits where the guy goes and talks to Parley P. Pratt and Orson Pratt and Miss Snow, and the guy is completely dumbfounded because these people are with the founders and prophet of the Mormon church, but they cannot describe him. They can't describe him. They can't describe what kind of jokes he told. They can't describe what he looks like. Do you understand the history of the church here? Right? And then you have these people that are very prominent people in the creation of the church, and they can't even describe what Joseph Smith looks like. Do you understand that? Does that resonate with you? They can't even describe him. Orson Pratt, look him up. Parley P. Pratt, look him up. The Pratts are at the William Morgan trial. So connect that dot. Connect that dot. The Pratts are at the William Morgan trial. You tell me, is William Morgan Joseph Smith? I don't believe Joseph Smith is a real person. I do not. And especially since the amount of work and history that I have been looking up lately, to try to prove that Joseph Smith is even a real person, is astronomical. The amount of information that I have acquired about this character named Joseph Smith is profound, because there is no evidence of this guy ever. And everything, all of the evidence that we do have of him is always in the third person. These three witnesses said they saw him, or yeah, he was a great guy, but they never describe him though. They never describe his particulars. And that's even what the guy says in the article, is this guy is so profound that his main members can't even describe his particulars, is what he says. And I've got about 7 articles that have that in it, that have similar language to that, where nobody can even describe what Joseph Smith looks like. Okay. So it's pretty insane. It is really insane. And, I'm coming from an LDS background myself. I was born and raised in the church, so I know all these stories, right? My family is very much still involved in the church, and I talk to them about it, and they are just not interested at all, not at all. And it's because they feel like I'm picking on the guy, and I'm saying to you, hey, this is your religion, man. This is what you're practicing. You're practicing Solomonic Magic. You're practicing Freemasonry, right? Hiram Abif is huge in Freemasonry. King Solomon is the first Mason. You have to understand that. So when you hear of the church referring to Solomon's temples, what do you think that is? Okay. When you look at the Kirkland Temple, okay, the Kirkland Temple is very, very important. When you look at that temple and you read the Testament of Solomon, right? When you read this stuff, keep LDS in mind and you'll see it. You will clearly see it. And when you read that book, Light on Masonry, you will see he literally calls it the Church of Masonry. The Church of Masonry. And that's why William Morgan died, was because he was trying to warn the public that the Mormons are coming. The Mormons are coming. The Mormons are coming. And he died. They murdered him. It even describes how they murdered him in the book. Okay. They cut his body in half. They took out his entrails. They burnt the entrails to ashes, and they spread his ashes to the north, to the south, to the east, and to the west. That's in the book. And that is also, and it actually explains to you why they did that. What is the significance of that? Well, these are Masonic rituals. They're Masonic rites. It's Masonry. And so when you listen to anything about Masonry, and when they refer to the craft, okay, the craft is not Freemasonry. The craft is the magic of Solomon. That is what they're referring to, is when they refer to the craft. Freemasonry is not the craft. Freemasonry is the idea, right? The craft is the magic. That's the craft. Okay. And that magic is what you will see on those parchments, the coins, the sword, When you hear the stories of how Joseph Smith was a necromancer, he's not practicing folklore. I don't care what anybody says, folklore, that's garbage. That stuff's bananas. Okay. Folklore is you got a rabbit's foot in your pocket. That's folklore. Okay. When you're saying like, hey baby, what's your sign? Okay. You don't really believe in astrology. You're just trying to get a girlfriend. That's folklore. Okay. You don't believe in this stuff. It's just kind of pop culture. Solomonic magic is very specific, and it is not to be messed with. It actually kind of scares me when I look this stuff up, because I don't believe in it. And I just watched one today on necromancy and so necromancy is the raising of the dead, and controlling the spirits in that realm. Okay. So I'm watching this video, and these people are, I'm just going to say they're whack, man. These people are whack, dude. They're, hi, welcome to the magic. Okay. Who talks like that? LDS people do, for one, but I don't want to, but I have to sit there for an hour and a half and listen to this lady talk about this stuff because I'm looking for connections to Joseph Smith. Okay. She is not going to tell me anything about Joseph Smith, but what she is going to tell me is okay, so hang on here, Rick. I got to read your thing here. So are you implying Joseph Smith might have been some Freemasonry mythos story made to promote the movement? Yes, I am implying that. 100%. Okay, so interesting question. What do you think the other LDS denominations are up to, like the RLDS? Do you think the Masonry is involved in them too? Full disclosure, Rick, I don't know anything about the RLDS church. As an LDS member, we are taught that those are apostates. So we don't even look at them. The RLDS church they're almost as bad as the polygamists down in Colorado to an LDS person. Okay. So honestly, the only thing I know about the RLDS is Emma Smith and Hiram Smith broke off from the Brigham Young branch and they created the RLDS church. Well, Hiram Smith is the one that gave the LDS church that coin, the talisman, the Jupiter talisman of Joseph, and the parchment paper, the ritual knife, the sword, and all of the stories that go along with Solomonic magic. The RLDS church had all that stuff. And so now with the purchase of the Kirkland Temple, the LDS church now has all of that stuff in their possessions. So the chances of us ever seeing any of that stuff ever again is probably pretty slim. So, but one thing I will say though, is if you take into this Scottish Masonry, the Temple of Solomon, all of that kind of stuff, where's the Holy Grail supposed to be buried? In the Temple of Solomon. What are they looking for in Oak Island? This is where the conspiracy comes in, Rick. What are they looking for in Oak Island? The Holy Grail. So if you take all of this into consideration, the creation of a Masonic church, which the Kilwinning Abbey was the last known place for the Holy Grail, those Scottish Rite Masons came to America and they literally created the Church of Masonry. So if that's true, where do you think the Holy Grail might be? In the LDS vault, maybe? I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. If you take all of this into consideration, it's plausible. That's all I'm saying. It's plausible. So anyways, now there is another book that is the actual book of William Morgan. It's called Illustrations of Masonry. So Illustrations of Masonry, Rick, one thing, if you're still out there, Rick, one thing that I would like to say about your implying of Joseph Smith might be a Freemason mythos. If you read the first and second warden, junior wardens, the first and second, junior and senior wardens, the description of those, of that idea of what they represent, that representation, I think is Joseph Smith. The junior warden is, I believe, Joseph Smith is a representation of the junior warden. Same thing with the senior warden. The senior warden is Joseph Smith Sr. is a representation of the senior warden, because we literally can't find any of these people in history. They don't exist. There is no Joseph Smith Jr. or Joseph Smith Sr. They don't exist. There's no Aziel. So if you don't have an Aziel, then you don't have Joseph Smith Sr. and certainly not Joseph Smith Jr. But that brings up a question, though. This stuff happened. This really happened. The Book of Mormon was written. Somebody wrote that book. Somebody wrote that book. So when did that book come out? I don't believe it came out in 1830. If that book did come out in 1830, just based on how generic that book is, I don't know if you've ever read the Book of Mormon, but I highly, highly recommend you read it just so you know what it is that you're arguing against. Just based on how generic that book is, it's compared to these other, like I said before, I'm reading all of these other preachers' notes and stuff, right? And they've all written books. Most of them have all written books. And these books are very fluid. They read like a book. Some of them are quite poetic. I mean, some of these things are very poetic, right? And then you got the Book of Mormon. That's just so generic and just so like, you have to stretch your imagination to believe in that book, right? But I lost my train of thought there. Let's see, I'm reading your new thing here, balance. Okay, I'll have to check it out. I've heard a few stories like this before of a figure who people claim to have existed, but there being a weird timeline that doesn't fit the real world events. Yeah, there is no story of Joseph Smith that I can 100% say Joseph Smith Jr. did this. I can't do it. I can't do it. And that's what I say to you guys. If you guys, I put the challenge out to you guys. If you can show me any evidence that this guy existed outside of church documentation, please send it to me. I would love to see it because I can't find it. So, all right, back to illustrations on Masonry. So illustrations of Masonry, that's William Morgan's actual book that he did write. Okay, so that book is not, it's not very good. Okay, it's a good book, but as far as him, I don't, I mean, the guy died over this book, and it really kind of sucks. So I really feel bad for the guy. The guy died over a crappy book, man. And thank God for Elder David Brainerd that released another book. His book is called Light on Masonry, and he took William Morgan's book, and it actually says in the preface of Elder David Bernard's book, I took William Morgan's book and I copied it word for word, and I added to it the things that he left out in its appropriate places. And it's a much more interesting book. But just for sake of bringing truth, I can't come on YouTube and say, hey, read this book when I've never read it myself, because you'll see right through me if I did that. So I have to, especially if you've read the book. If you've actually read the book and I'm talking about a book I've never read, you will see me, because I see you. When you're trying to tell me about a book that I've read and I can tell that you've never read it just on the language that you're using, you're going to see me. You will see me. And I don't want that to happen. So I don't want that to happen. I'm well aware that this is YouTube. I don't want that to happen, man. So whatever I say on any of my videos, you can literally look up for yourself and you can find everything and more that I'm talking about. Nothing is, I do throw in my own opinion sometimes, but I directly say, this is my opinion, or this is my own personal conspiracy theory, or whatever, right? But when it comes to like factual stuff, I give websites, I give books, I give dates, I give names, because I want you to go and look this stuff up and see for yourself that those symbols are Solomonic magic. The LDS Church is the Church of Masonry that William Morgan tried to warn us about, and he died for, right? And you know, the truth hurts, you guys. The truth hurts. And I understand that. And I'm not trying to be like a jerk or like any kind of like, I got you, or, you know, no, because my experience with Mormonism is completely different than yours. And your experience with Mormonism is totally different than the next guy. But when we come down to the core basic elements of what Mormonism is and how it got started, that's what interests me. I want to know how it got started. I don't care about anything else. I don't care about polygamy. I don't care about Mountain Meadow Massacre. I mean, yeah, all that stuff is, you know, it's all tragic, and it, you know, it's, I can't believe it. But in my mind, those are distractions. You're being distracted from what's really going on right here. The Church of Masonry, right? It's being hidden in plain sight. And so all of this stuff is all distractions. Yes, it may have happened. I can't find anything that the Mountain Meadow Massacre was done by the Mormons, but there was a Mountain Meadow Massacre. But I cannot find anything that says it was the Mormons that did it, right? I can't find anything that says that, other than church history. Church history is the only thing. And so when you get all of these people that are writing all these books, okay, all of these church history historians, well, if I'm finding this stuff, what are you writing your book about? What is your book actually about? Because I'm not a historian, I'm not a scholar, I'm just a guy that I watched a movie, or I watched a show on Joseph Smith's necromancy, and my interest just peaked right away. I knew what some of those signs were before even getting into any of this stuff. I knew what they were right off the bat, just from past friends and high school days and, you know, folklore, all of that kind of stuff, right? So I already knew what some of that stuff was when I watched it, right? And so that's what got me into this. And then I just started following the dates. I literally just started following the dates and the people's names. That's it. That's all I did. And I came across all of this stuff. And it is absolutely fascinating to know that there is a religion that people are practicing, and they literally have no idea what that religion actually means, what that religion actually stands for, what that religion actually does, because the entire thing is smoke and mirrors. The whole thing is smoke and mirrors. I cannot validate anything that has to do with the origin story of the Mormon Church. And this is the story that the church itself tells us. I can't validate any of it. None of it. The entire Joseph Smith era, I cannot validate any of that stuff with that guy, Joseph Smith, being in the places where he is said to be. None of it is valid, because you can Google all of it. You can literally Google all of this stuff, and none of it's there. None of it's there. So I've never heard of Max Steimer. I don't know who that. I've never even heard that name before. About that guy that you do with Joseph Smith. Yeah, I've never even heard that name before. I'll look it up though. I'll check into that, because here, I'll actually write it down. Max Steimer. Max Steimer. Yeah. So, all right. So that's kind of me rambling and just kind of the Masonry, the magic, the Morgan and mythology. That's kind of the in a nutshell the topic of today's topic. Sorry, lack of words there. But so, anyways, so with this episode, I'm just trying to tie it all together because then I don't do a very good job of explaining things, and I understand that. Uh, the purpose of my videos are to get this information out to the public. Whether you actually look into any of this stuff or not, that's totally up to you, 100%. But I know for myself, as an ex-Mormon, okay, one of the things that I'm really working on that I find it really very difficult to admit to myself is the fact that I am an ex-cult member. That's almost embarrassing to say for me, because Mormonism is a cult. No matter how you look at it, Mormonism is a cult. And I'm sorry if that hurts some of your feelings to hear those words. But when you look up what a cult is and what they do and how they operate and, all of this kind of stuff, Mormonism is very much a cult. And so I am an ex-cult member. I'm learning how to say that. Okay. It's hard for me to say that. It's embarrassing because I have to admit to myself that I was in a cult. I was born and raised in a cult, and I am no longer in that cult anymore. But it's very, very hard to escape, because once you're a Mormon, especially born and raised, you're a Mormon for life. It never goes away. It doesn't matter. You could be in another country, you could be in another state, another town. It doesn't matter. You will, the subject of Mormonism will come up, I promise you. And for all of you travelers out there, how many times has that happened to you? I did some in my 20s and 30s. I did some pretty extensive traveling, and anywhere I went, it didn't matter. Anywhere I went, Mormonism always came up, and so yeah, it never goes away. You're always a Mormon. Once a Mormon, always a Mormon. That's just the way it is. And so so I want to change that subject. I want to change the terminology. I want to change the lingo. I want to change this. We're on this channel. We're going to start calling this stuff what it is. This is a cult, and I am an ex-cult member. And this is Solomonic Magic. This is Freemasonry. Okay. Joseph Smith, I can't prove that he does not exist yet, but it's really looking like that. So, all right, that's enough of my rambling. That's about all I got for today. Now I'm just repeating myself, and nobody wants to watch that. So, some reading. I really highly recommend starting out reading the Testament of Solomon. It's about an hour and a half long if you listen to it on audio. There's all kinds of YouTube channels. Okay, don't get the commentary ones. Just listen to the story. Okay, just listen to the story. Don't listen to somebody's opinion about the story, because their opinion doesn't matter. I know I shouldn't say that, and I'm sorry for saying that, but their opinion as it relates to the LDS faith and Masonry, their opinion doesn't matter, because you're probably going to get a Christian opinion, first of all, not an LDS opinion. LDS are not Christians. LDS are not Christians. LDS are not Christians. Okay. Did I say that enough times? I think I did. LDS are not Christians. Okay. So you're most likely going to get a Christian response if you do listen to the Testament of Solomon with commentary. So try not to listen to the commentary. Just get one that just tells you the story of the Testament of Solomon. And then that will give you the introduction to Hiram Abiff, King Solomon, Solomon's Temple. That will explain so much to you when it comes to just religion in general. And if you're really interested, take it a step further and read the Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is where you get all of the angel magic from, the Kabbalistic angels and all that kind of stuff. That's some interesting stuff right there. You know, all of and that also has to do with Solomonic magic as well. So all of this stuff goes hand in hand. The Mormon Jesus, when you hear about the Mormon Jesus, that comes from the story of Hillel, from Jewish angel folklore. That's what it's called, Jewish angel folklore. And look up the story of Hillel. The story of Hillel is another testament of Jesus Christ. That's no BS. That is the story of Hillel. It's another testament of Jesus Christ. Well, what is the Book of Mormon? Blue, another testament of Jesus Christ. So you're literally, when people say the Mormon Jesus, they're not joking. There really is a Mormon Jesus, and it comes from the story of Hillel. So yeah, look that up. Interesting fun facts. All right. Anyways, that's enough for me. I'm out of time. I've gone over by 6 minutes here. Thank you for watching, Rick. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. Anybody else that watches the video, please like and subscribe to the video. I'm going to have a lot more stuff coming out that goes into a lot more detail on this stuff. And see, there's 3 topics right here: magic, Masonry, and William Morgan, and the Mormons. So we'll say 4. And that's it. So thank you, Rick, for subscribing. I really appreciate that, brother. It means a lot to me. Thank you. And thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you taking your time. And I know you're probably busy and got better things to do than listen to me. So thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right. Well, we're going to end it right now, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Every Sunday I put out a new video. So I know today's not Sunday, but I was running a little late. So next Sunday I will have a video for Sunday. So, all right. Thank you guys. Apostate congregation, I do thank all of you for watching and tuning in as well. I know that a lot of you guys watch these videos at later times. So, all right. Special shout out to the Apostate congregation. I really appreciate you guys. And we'll see you on Sunday. Thank you guys, and have a good day. Bye.